We've paid these six young people large sums of money to come and share their wisdom with us, so I'd like to make the most of my investment. I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves to you, just so that you know who they are, what their major is, and what other interesting things they do while they're here on campus. And then I'm going to raise 4 questions with them about Blackboard and ask them to respond in turn if they have anything that they wish to say, so that you can hear how they feel about these 4 questions. But let me begin by asking Cody if you would start the introductions, and then let's come back from that end to this, and then I'll ask the first question.
So, as Dr. Chandler said, I am Cody Boatler. I'm a senior at Towson. I'm graduating in May with a degree in journalism and environmental science. Thank you. I'm also the editor-in-chief of the Tower Light newspaper here, and I'm also doing a small part-time job for a broadcast company. That's why I have this right now, because Donald Trump just gave that big press conference, so I'm sorry if I have to turn to my laptop at some point. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Taylor Bacon. I am a junior here at Towson, an elementary and special education major. I'm also an RA at Towson, and I'm Director of Academic Affairs for the student government here.
Hi, I'm Rihanna Yarborough. I'm a junior majoring in health science. I also work in the Office of the Provost, which is very exciting. And I also
Wow.
and I also am a Peace Corps ambassador.
Thanks, Rihanna.
Hi everyone, my name is Brenda Odola. I did my undergraduate here at Towson. Right now I'm a first year grad student in the Doctor of Audiology program, and I'm a graduate assistant in the Center for Student Diversity.
Hi everyone, my name is Brianna Ferguson. I am a first year grad student in the Integrated Homeland Security Management program. I'm also a grad student in the Center for Student Diversity, working with student success programs, more specifically with SAGE and the College Readiness Outreach Program.
Hello everyone, my name is Nicholas Sokol. I graduated in May of 2015 in Geography and History. I completed my master's in climatology in December, and I'm also will be working with the Provost's office until the fall, when I hope to start my doctorate somewhere.
Thank you all so much for doing this, and thank you for being here. Let me begin with the first question that we had prepared them for. I have 4 questions, and then I hope we can open it up at the end to your questions of them, so that you can get direct feedback without my interruption. So the first question, and Cody, I'm going to start with you if I may. In what ways have faculty used Blackboard that has enhanced your learning?
So, is this still on? Yeah, okay. So, over the course of the 4 years I've been here, I've had faculty that do and do not choose to use Blackboard. But over the semesters, as I've been here, I really think that the most beneficial way I've seen it used and that I've experienced it has been with Blackboard as a sort of content hub. When professors use it to upload going beyond just the syllabus, but when there's extra readings or primary sources or any sort of course-related information, not necessarily posting the PowerPoints, but posting supplemental readings. That really has been the most beneficial for me, because it's one central location and we're not trying to, there's no confusion in trying to figure out, wait, where am I supposed to be looking for this? You know where it is. You don't have to try to find it in the e-reserves, which is sometimes difficult for students, especially if it's never explained to them, even though it is a wonderful resource. And it's also a great communication tool. That's been, if not tied, then the second most beneficial way I've seen it used, with professors using Blackboard to communicate with students. Not necessarily student-to-student communication. I have some other thoughts on that. But I think it's been great for professor-to-student communication. because again, it's clear, it's direct, and it's centrally located, which I think is so important, because a full-time student is taking 4 or 5 classes and involved in other extracurriculars and maybe has a part-time job and is dealing with all of these different information streams. It's nice to have classwork in one central location.
I really enjoy the resources that a lot of professors can put out on Blackboard, as well as seeing that little red box that tells you that one of your grades was posted. That makes me very excited personally. But also, another great way I've seen it used is through the discussion boards. I know oftentimes there can be students that are typically shy or don't like to share their opinions in class, but the discussion boards are a great way to get people to be open-minded, be open to other opinions, and, you know, just have a respectful discussion that can be facilitated through professors or without professors. And it's also a great way to add a grade to it. So I know that some professors did like extra credit if you respond on the discussion board, and if you responded to like more than 3 people, you get extra points. So it's not only great for us, but for you guys too.
I think that my situation is a little bit unique because the Homeland Security program is all online. So it gives me a chance to actually take classes because Blackboard gives me a chance to kind of have everything in one place and have discussions with my classmates, have our professors chime in, and just kind of have everything in one place. So I've enjoyed having my classes online using Blackboard because, as Cody said, I can look at all of my resources. I can look at all of the grades that I have that are being posted almost immediately, which is much better than undergrad. But yeah, I've enjoyed it.
I can say for me, it's really nice to have all of my syllabi in one place, which is like kind of weird, but sometimes I'm like in the library or somewhere where I don't have access to all of my school supplies. So just be able to like go online and see when something's due for all of my classes is really nice.
For the past year, I've been using Moodle at LSU, Louisiana State. It's similar to Blackboard, but I think the great thing between both of them was the fact that the amount of organization that you could maintain working with these platforms. You could find class notes, homework, and other documents that your teacher may have disseminated through the platform, and I think it was really great for retrieving those in case you had an emergency that called you away from class and you weren't able to get those.
Terrific. Thank you. Go ahead, please. Shut me up.
I think everyone basically said what I was gonna say, but definitely the organization. I think having everything in one spot just makes life a lot easier. We're like students who do 10 different things. So like they said, like if I'm at work and I know that assignment is due and I don't have like the material with me, you can easily go on Blackboard and access those additional things, where it be syllabi or additional readings or things like that. So I think having those professors who use those definitely benefited me.
Thank you, and my apologies for cutting you off before you had a chance to answer the question. Are there any disadvantages that you see to using Blackboard, and if so, what exactly? What might be some negative features from your point of view?
I know for me, I've had professors who solely rely on Blackboard, which I feel like takes away from the personal interaction. I take strengths quest, and so like one of my top strengths is communication, and so I feel like it takes away just from being personable, and I like miss that just like social interaction that we had before technology really existed. So like I really do like having everything in one place, but I also feel like having like one-on-one conversations is also very important.
Please, others.
Like any tech, is this on? Can you guys hear me? Okay. Like any technology, Blackboard isn't perfect, and neither is Wi-Fi on campus. So I remember, I'm sorry.
That was a very clever dig.
one time I was taking a midterm actually online and the Wi-Fi cut out, and after I had my little panic attack, I did email my professor, and of course, and thankfully she was very accommodating. So it's just important to keep in mind that it's not always going to work perfectly, so sometimes you do have to take into consideration Wi-Fi, and also some students may just not have access to computers.
Yeah, same as what she said. I think taking tests on Blackboard is a little weird. Sometimes it works and sometimes it really doesn't. And I think sometimes the way professors put in to like calculate the grades, like it may tell you something's wrong, but really it's right, or because you didn't use a certain word, it's automatically wrong. So things like that, I think taking tests is a slightly disadvantage. It doesn't really work as well as in person.
Yeah. I will jump in and agree with just about everything that has been said. I do think there are times when Blackboard, as great as it is for being a central communication platform, I think there are times when it can become a crutch. And that's definitely a pitfall that I've experienced once or twice. And I'll also go a step further with taking exams on Blackboard. You know, it's more than, oh, the Wi-Fi might drop out. It's if you put an exam or a midterm on Blackboard, students in your class will cheat on that exam. They will open up their textbooks, they will go online. It really is unavoidable. And I think that's something that should be considered. It's probably not a very popular thing to say. I'm sorry, Dr.
No,
Taylor.
I think it's a very popular thing to say.
Eh,
Unavoidable, maybe not, but
yeah, it's just something that, you know, I've heard people talking about it. I've seen it happen. Just gonna put that out there in case no one's ever acknowledged.
thanks, Cody. Others who see potential negatives or negatives in Blackboard and the use of Blackboard.
I'm not 100% sure if it's all the way on Blackboard or if it's the teaching styles that I've seen with professors that use Blackboard. And I do see a lot of positives with using the discussion board, but I think sometimes that also becomes a crutch. It becomes all discussion, and some of the discussion becomes forced because I have to get this grade, so I have to say something even though I don't understand what I'm talking about, I don't understand what happened, but I need a grade. And I think sometimes when professors force that, you lose the quality and what the discussion actually could be, instead of having a discussion on, I don't know, Skype or some kind of video conference where everyone could kind of chime in when they want to. So.
Just to ride along with that, I'll say one disadvantage of putting most of your discussions on Blackboard, you really remove an opportunity for students to acquire experience communicating their ideas with other people in the classroom. So I think that should be limited just so that students have the opportunity to discuss opinions amongst one another instead of just typing it and making it seem like it has the same amount of weight as it would if they said it themselves.
Hi again. Again with the discussions, you know, I've seen on Blackboard classroom discussions where it'll sometimes devolve into people just saying, oh yes, I agree, because A. And that's all they post. And I think that it really removes from the conversation because there's no immediate back and forth and there's not much accountability. And it kind of, I think, detracts from the learning experience and the challenge of the course for the student.
I also think one last thing to consider is in terms of discussions, the initial posts are usually visible to all students. So one instance in one of my classrooms, a student actually used a lot of the same information as a previous student. So what my professor ended up doing was making the post private until we were ready to make our rebuttals. So it is just important to take that into consideration because sometimes people may not do their own research. They might read the other previous posts and then just come up with something after that.
Interesting. Anything else on the negative features? Let's just turn it around the other way one more time and ask you, what's your favorite feature of Blackboard and why? We've heard the little red, what else? What other favorite features? Are there any favorite features that you have? Yeah.
Go ahead, Brenda.
Okay. There's like I think it's called like a update button where it shows you when a professor has updated something on Blackboard, where it be your grade, or if they added another assignment, or if they made something visible, or if they made a test available for you. So I think that's my favorite feature, is that it tells you when a teacher has done any type of update on that Blackboard site, so that you can go there and see what that update was, so that you won't miss anything that's going on.
I have three things. Sorry. Okay, so my first thing is being able to see my grade. I feel like it's just so much easier to like not have to guess what I have in the class, and also just to be able to go online. Out of the Department of Academic Affairs for the Student Government Association, we're actually conducting a survey to see how students feel about Blackboard, and grades are pretty high on our survey so far. We're still working on getting more people involved in taking the survey, but that's also really important. I also like the feature where you can email your class, which is like really nice if like you miss something, or if you just have questions. I know I've used it for like, I don't really understand this, does anyone understand it? So like having that opportunity to communicate with your classmates is also a plus. I also like receiving the emails that you get. Like on Blackboard, I check my email more than anything. So being able to see that my professor has updated something through the email system is also an advantage for me.
Mine, I love to save paper, and with Blackboard, you can submit your papers. I remember last semester I had like a 30-something page grant, so it was really awesome to be able to just submit it online, so I didn't have to print and buy ink or anything like that. And also you can get comments from the professors directly on there, so you don't have to worry so much about trying to interpret their handwriting sometimes, or no offense to any of my professors, but that, or you can just email them right then after you check your Blackboard, just to see what they may have meant by something. Also, you can read the rubric right next to your paper, so it's really accessible, so I enjoy that.
There's a few things that I really like about Blackboard. One of them is being able to see my grade pretty immediately. I also like the fact that when I submit a paper or submit an assignment, it's confirmed right then and there that it's been submitted. So I don't have to worry about sending in an email and not getting a confirmation that it's been received. I know that the communication between my professor and I is going to be clear because Blackboard said it was there, so my hands are off. I don't have to worry about it not being received. One of the things that I haven't necessarily used here, but I used in undergrad, was that some of my professors would allow us to use a plagiarism checker right on Blackboard. And so if I ever had a question, I could run that as many times as I wanted so that I could catch myself in case I made a mistake and I didn't get myself in trouble unintentionally. So that's also something that I know exists. I just haven't really used it since I've been here yet.
She stole mine with the plagiarism checker, but it's terrifying but fantastic at the same way, because you get to see what other people have written. And you may not have necessarily known that they wrote that, but you still were getting something somewhere similar to what they wrote. I think another thing I like about Blackboard is Blackboard Mobile. I don't know if a lot of people utilize that, but it's really great to kind of have it on your phone, and that way you can check things on the go.
So I think at this point it's a little hard to overstate how much everyone loves being able to check their grades, which is an amazing part. But I really do have to say the question is, our favorite part or our favorite feature. It really is for me Blackboard's use as a central hub for information about the class. Extra readings, the syllabus, assignment rubrics, guidelines. I've had classes where things are handed out individually, and there's so much potential for things to get lost in the shuffle of paper that way. I've had classes where things are just emailed and they can be deleted or lost, or files might not be attached. But when you use Blackboard, you know it's all there. And that removes so much unnecessary stress and anxiety about, oh man, will I be able to find my syllabus? Oh no, where's this assignment rubric? Where do I find the rubric? How do I know what to do? I don't think I can say enough how much I love that it's all right there.
Also, sorry I'm talking so much, but I really like Blackboard because as an education major, a lot of the schools are moving things online. I know in Baltimore County, where I interned last semester, they have the computer systems where students are taking tests online, and I was in a secondary classroom, and like they're moving towards technology. So just having the experience as an undergrad using the technology so that when I get into the classroom, I know what I'm doing. And like I've taken a test online, so I know how this works. And also just like having the sympathy towards my students. So if something goes wrong, like I remember my undergrad when this went wrong. So like having the opportunity to like advance my career and be more sympathetic towards my own students.
The last thing I have to say is that it holds you really accountable. So you can't say that you didn't see the email, or you can't say that you didn't see the post. You can't say that you didn't see something on the syllabi, because it's all right there. And I know that there may be some people who do not have access to computers at home, but we do have a library, so you can always go there to check it if you need to. So yeah, it really holds you accountable as a student, and it makes you want to try harder, because if a paper's due at 11:59 on a Friday night, you're more likely to get it done on Wednesday or Thursday if you want to go out and be a typical college student, I guess. But yeah, stuff like that.
You'd never guess she worked in the provost office when the first word out of her mouth is accountability, would you really? That's terrific, Rihanna. Thank you. Other comments on the pieces that you most like about Blackboard? I think you've made your case very fully, but go ahead, Cody, if you've got one more item, and then I'll get to the last question.
Thank you. There is one thing that I wanted to mention and then forgot. It's minor, but I think it's really nice to have on Blackboard a way to at once just email everyone else who's in the class with you. I think it was touched on a little bit, but that's a great resource. If there's something you missed or something you don't understand and you want to start an email chain instead of relying on a Blackboard discussion post, which people might not look at. Everyone's looking at that email. It's just a nice tool.
Thanks, Cody. So my last question for you, and then I'm going to ask those on the floor to ask you whatever they wish. What would you like to tell the faculty gathered here today about the value you place on using Blackboard? And you've made some of these points, but perhaps you'd reiterate those that you think are most valuable to you.
I think my biggest thing, and the way I can most stress how valuable I think I see Blackboard as a tool, is that if you're not using it in your classrooms right now, I really hope you will start to and learn how to use it. And it's become such a useful tool for classroom communication, for assignment distribution and collection. I can't imagine being in a classroom on this university without using Blackboard, because it's become so essential and so useful. And students get it pretty quickly. It's a pretty intuitive tool for the most part. Yeah, please use it.
One of the things, and I forgot to mention this earlier, that I really enjoy about Facebook, Blackboard, about Blackboard is the ability to get feedback at any time. Sometimes it's really hard for students and their professors to make time to go over feedback or to get comments on a paper, especially if there's a large class. But Blackboard kind of gives you that opportunity to give feedback at 2 a.m. if you have time to sit down and write it for whatever student is asking for it. And then you can follow up on it in person or email. But I know that, especially with this being my first semester that I just finished with grad school, I asked for a lot of feedback on all of my papers, because a lot of things I was so unfamiliar with, different writing styles and different things that were being asked about. So it gave my professor and I a chance to kind of get to know each other and get questions answered that I wouldn't necessarily be able to do, especially because neither of us are on campus most of the time. So.
I think Blackboard gives a voice for students who typically might not have one. Every student isn't comfortable raising their hand in a lecture-style classroom, but they may be comfortable typing on a computer. Also, this SGA survey that I keep mentioning, like, students really do appreciate being able to see their grades. So that's something else. It's like a valuable asset as a student.
I would say probably depending on the type of material that you're teaching in your course, it's up to the professor to determine whether or not Blackboard is a good option. That's one thing I would say. But I would also agree with the notion that the amount of information that students have access to from Blackboard, if used properly, is fantastic. So given that, I think it should be kind of objective, or subjective rather, as to whether or not you should use it for what you're teaching.
So like he said, I think it definitely depends on like the content of the class. But looking back at my undergraduate career, the classes that I felt like had a lot of content and we were just getting a lot of papers, it was so unorganized. I think Blackboard puts that organization into it, especially if it's a class that has a lot of content. So I would say that for our classes that do have a lot of things that whether it be additional readings, whether it be quizzes, whether it be PowerPoints, definitely Blackboard would be very useful for your students in organizing. Like I said, students have a whole bunch of things going on, but I think having at least Blackboard to organize all that information is beneficial to their learning.
Only benefits us as students, but professors benefit as well. You can see when students post things exactly what time. Students can't use the excuse that their printer doesn't work and stuff like. I've heard many of those excuses that printers don't work or something happened, because you can typically or almost always submit something online. So yeah, it not only benefits us, but everyone else as well.
I come from a pretty low income family, so it's pretty nice to not have the burden of paying for ink, and turning things in on Blackboard really like eliminates that burden for my family. Ink is really expensive. So if you want to take into account the demographics of your student, and money is tight, y'all. Like, it's just easy.
I have one more thing. Speaking of, textbooks are really expensive.
Yes.
I'm
Oh
sure
my
a
God.
lot of people know. So my favorite professors always posted the book online, which is so awesome, because they'd give us copies of pages that were especially important. And I know that this isn't always possible, that sometimes we will have to buy textbooks, but it is really helpful if there's like a $200 book that you only use about 30 pages of, just to post the important ones for us.
There's a plug for open educational resources if ever I heard one. Okay, some questions from the floor, please. Yes, Marie, go ahead.
Thank you, first of all, for giving up a January afternoon to do this. I appreciate it. And I agree. I like Blackboard as a clearinghouse, and I think it does help everything stay organized. And the things that I don't like, I think are things that I'm hearing that you all don't really like either, which is the Web 2.0 sort of. How do we? So I would love to hear from you. How you see maybe discussions run well, or other interactive sort of community building activities that maybe they happened outside of Blackboard. When you've seen that work well. So those things that are sort of indie, like the discussion board or sort of forced march discussion posts, when you've seen that work well, if you have suggestions for us how to best use that in your class.
I had a course that prepared us for Model Organization of American States a while back, and what we used the discussion boards for were sharing information on the different nation states that we studied. And I think that was great because it kind of turned into a student-developed Wikipedia. Of course, you can easily fact-check that online, so if something seems off to you, it's very easy to Google it. At the same time, I think to make discussion better, you could probably ask students to record a video of themselves speaking the material personally. Everybody has a webcam now. If you have an iPhone or a smartphone, you've got a webcam, so it's not that difficult to record a video of yourself speaking for a minute and then upload it on the Blackboard. Another point that I would raise would probably just be maintaining, again, the information verification, just making sure that things are kind of correct. A lot of times, I know that in some courses, teachers will put up discussion board posts and they will allow students to say things, but then they don't interact with it at all. They just kind of leave it there and let the students mingle. Students aren't going to mingle on their own. And I think getting the faculty's presence involved in that will definitely raise the stakes a little bit, so to speak.
One of the things that I've seen done really well, which I was a little concerned about, was group projects with one particular professor, not with all of them. But we worked on our group project and then we posted it on the discussion board with our PowerPoint and some comments on there for other groups to see and comment. So we were able to do a presentation that way together so that everyone could see everyone's PowerPoint, everyone could see everyone's information all at one time so that we could use it for our tests later. We could use that information. And I appreciated that because when I saw an online class with the group project, I immediately froze because I couldn't figure out how I could hold everybody accountable for that, and we're not even in the same state. But it did allow us to kind of hold each other accountable even within our groups, because when I saw that there was a mistake or I saw there was some information I didn't understand and needed to be clarified, we could comment to each other before the grade went in, so they were able to correct it before they actually submitted their project.
For me, my favorite discussion that I've had at Towson so far, our professor broke us up into smaller groups, and the groups were random. Like, he picked the groups, so it wasn't students picking them. And I feel like it really broadened my horizons because I was able to connect with students that I probably wouldn't have talked to in the class. So, like, and it gave me, like, a more personalized touch because there were only 6 of us in the group instead of the 30 people who were in the class. So I was able to have, like, more of a genuine personal discussion.
Thanks. Yes and yes. Go ahead. From what I hear, you should be doing a video of this, but go on.
I have two, it's more like comments, really. Number one, so you're saying that Blackboard is this phenomenal platform for posting information, serving as a central hub for information about the course and the deadlines and stuff. From what I understand, you're really saying that there should really be no excuse for students that still claim that they didn't know about the deadline or that they didn't know about
Not
some
always.
sort of information that's clearly spelled out in the syllabus. It's not really a question, it's more about
I agree. 100%.
That's what I'm going to take back to my class.
I don't 100% agree. Sometimes links don't work. So I've tried to submit things. My final was due at noon. It wasn't released until the night before, and my class scrambled because my professor wasn't answering his email, and the link didn't work, so we couldn't submit our final. So we were trying to email it, so it takes a lot of excuse out, but it doesn't completely eliminate it because it is still technology.
And I was also commenting on that, I think sometimes professors, the settings that they make on Blackboard limit the way we see things, I think. I don't know why it does this, but whenever someone updates, it sends you an email when there's an update, but the email is always like a day after or like 2 days after. So unless you go on Blackboard to see that update in your email, it told you that it comes later. So sometimes that has messed me up, but that's, my fault. But definitely, I think it gives like she said, it gives the student more accountability, but at the same time, I don't think it eliminates, because it's still technology, and technology is flawed.
And the second thing, if I may, again, kind of going back to your points about the fact that you're using, and that we're all using Blackboard primarily for communicating information about the course, posting slides and stuff like that. Some of you said that it is used for communication between students. Some of you said that that's probably not such a good tool to begin with. But most of the things that you have said are related to the organizational aspect of the course and the fact that you have the central hub for all the information. So my question is, and just sort of my feeling, is that we're missing out on a lot of stuff that Blackboard offers and advertises above and way beyond the simple, what is really a relatively simple platform for just posting stuff and file exchange and even communication. from what I understand and from what Blackboard advertises and from what I think as a university we're paying really big money for, there's a lot more on Blackboard that could be utilized. And I'm not sure what those things are, but I know that they're there, and there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more depth and complexity beyond what we seem to be using and what you seem to perceive as the most important and advantageous things in your education. That's something I'll be giving some thought to in the future.
Great, thank you. There's a question
Just
over
a comment on that. Offers so much that it's important to remember to stay. Like, my favorite classes are the classes that are organized on the back end, because I know some things, there's so much that Blackboard can do that it sometimes gets lost, and like things are different folders and stuff like that. So I feel like Blackboard really, really works if it's organized on the back end.
Go ahead.
Some people are wondering what on the back end means before I ask my question. Could you elaborate?
Yeah, definitely. So like having your folders organized and just having it easy for students to find things before you release it. So like they talked about things not being released to students. So just making sure that there's no room for like ambiguity when you release your information as professors.
So I had a few questions that are kind of related to things I heard that I was trying to get in for. So one was that idea of having students post videos or maybe audio files. On your end, how long does it take to post audio, like larger files like that? And then my other question is about grading. I've started doing more of my grading that way. I wonder how students feel when, like, let's say I have 25 students. The first 8, I posted their grades and I go to bed. Now, sometimes they're all chattering together, going, oh my God, he posted now, and it gets a little crazy. The other thing that gets a little crazy for me is sometimes they know their grade and their score, and then I find they don't really read the feedback because I know what I got. So I'm curious your thoughts on this.
It really depends how long it takes. There's several variables. One, it could be your upload speed, wherever you are. If you're on campus, as we've heard here, the internet's not so reliable. If you're home, maybe your internet's not so reliable. If you're trying to film yourself in 4K resolution and upload it, then you're going to wait an hour for that to upload. And I don't think your professors want to see you in 4K resolution anyway. So it really depends on what you're uploading. If you're recording a 2-hour, rant about something that you were talking about in class, that's going to take time to upload. But most of the time, if it's within reason, it should take no more than 5 minutes to upload something like that to Blackboard.
I know how long it takes me to upload my videos for students, and I wasn't sure if the student version, what you see is different from me. I didn't know if you had more restrictions. I can upload something from 10 minutes, 20 minutes, but I don't know what the student has.
I can't exactly comment on that because I've never uploaded anything longer than 5 or 10 minutes. Personally, I would say that if it goes beyond 30 minutes or something, that's something that should probably be shown in the classroom. Or you can provide a link to the source itself for students to pull up in a web browser.
Just to jump in on that, I think one way you can avoid any sort of uncertainty or, oh man, how long will my students be sitting here to wait uploading? Just if you maybe encourage everyone to just create a private YouTube account and upload it there, because for minute-long videos, YouTube has a really fast upload speed. I've never spent more than 15 minutes waiting for anything I've uploaded for the Tower Light, that are multiple minutes long, to make it to YouTube. And if it's a 30-second, 45-second, 60-second clip, I don't think it would take any time at all.
Yeah, I was gonna comment on that. Undergrad, I was a deaf studies major, and so we had to update a lot of videos, upload a lot of videos. And I know some things that my teachers used was YouTube, and it's quick, like he said. Another thing that we used was Dropbox, and that was also easier. You could share the file with your teacher, and they could see what you uploaded, and it was quick. I never took more than like 15 minutes.
I know we're running out of time, but in terms of grading, I'd really suggest that you posted them all at once, only because that does freak out students when, half of us have our grades and the other half don't. And also in terms of reading the responses, I think that's our responsibility. So, it's really on us whether or not we read the feedback. You took the time to put it out, so it's up to us to take advantage of it and grow from there.
For the grading thing, I've had professors just help us realize, like, professors are people, and you have lives, and you have children, and you have families. And so I think it's really important to, I think that's important to build relationships with your students and help them understand who you are as people and that you're not going to do everything at once. And so, I've had professors who are like, I'll grade your papers as they come in. So if you turn in your paper last, you might be the last to get graded. And that also helps students turn in their papers earlier because you want your grade back. So I just think building that relationship with your students so that they understand that, your whole life isn't from 3 to 5 when they're with you.
All right. Well, as it's been pointed out, time has run out. There is a lot more that we can do with Blackboard than we are doing with it. It has analytical qualities that many of you have not used. I'm hoping that before too long, reappointment, promotion, and tenure will be done online, and Blackboard is one potential platform that we're looking at for using that. Since you have a lot of other materials online there, it does seem to make logical sense, at least, to look at that as a potential platform. So yes, it's a big investment that we make every year in Blackboard, but I think you've heard that from a student's perspective, it's a worthwhile investment, and I think if we can continue to eke out all the possibilities that it provides us, it's still a good investment. Will you help me thank these 6 remarkable young people? Thank you all so very much.